Thank you for having us. Look, this is an item that's come out of the annual plan process. Sorry, thank you. Where you've requested a report, which we will prepare after this session. This was really to get some background to you and discuss and make sure we're going to be having the right information for that report. So currently, in terms of safety and security at the bus interchange, we've got quite a number of different things that are in place. We have security guards who patrol. We have CCTV. So those are part of that traditional suite of security mechanisms. Then we've got on site the Igloo, which is one run by Youth Cultural Development, YCD, which provides service after school hours, just as a safe and secure spot for youth to drop in. We have homeless outreach services where they come through and talk to those with homelessness needs. The beat police visit on several times a day. We also have more, I suppose, exotic approaches. So we have trialled the use of classical music in hangout areas to try and deter hanging out, which seems to have worked quite nicely. And we do things like also close off at certain times of the day spaces so that there are less hidey holes and places that people can sit and not be seen. So we think that those arrangements are working reasonably well at the moment. We're seeing quite high satisfaction levels at the bus exchange. The point of contact surveys that we do for last year had an 84% satisfied or very satisfied rating. Those surveys are being redone at the moment, so we can provide an update on those once we get the data on there. We do, though, recognise that there are historic issues and we still get occasional issues, and they're of a variety of nature. Just looking through some of the files this morning, reports of intoxicated people on site, reports of people yelling at staff because they've missed their bus, shoplifting and attempted shoplifting, and then more serious ones. An example would be we had two girls riding scooters. They were asked to stop riding scooters within the space, and they ended up assaulting the guards before they were arrested. So we do recognise we do get the occasional serious issue, but when you look through, you're certainly seeing that our mechanisms are working, and particularly working with the guards and the police together to address those. The feedback we're seeing is that things are improving, and that's supported by the data that we have, the very few levels of formal reports we receive. We believe the Igloo in particular is working well, providing a safe space for youth, but there are still some concerns, particularly from tenants and nearby businesses, and the one we hear mostly is now around shoplifting and that occurring. Just briefly, where we get some of our data from, I won't go into that too much. Talked about the user survey. So the current and future issues that we're really focusing on at the moment, we know with One New Zealand Stadium coming on that we are likely to see increased numbers coming through of a different nature, and we need to plan for that. So we're currently underway with a security assessment of the building to see what can be done in there. We have recently had a high-risk vehicle incident, which I think is probably the first of that nature we've seen, where a car mounted the curb and the donuts in the forecourt area while people were working through. So we're taking that one very seriously, and we'll be looking to install bollards to prevent that happening again. We have seen a displacement of hanging out. So where people might have hung out inside the exchange or at the forecourts, they're now starting to move further afield because of the mechanisms that we've put in place, which is trying to discourage that. But that has its own problems because they're potentially groups that are now hanging out in less visible locations or causing problems for others in the area. So part of that, we're looking at improving our relationship with the CCBA's city safety team and working out how we can jointly manage that issue. And we have recently, as you're aware, because we've circulated this information, met with the Beat Police, got their feedback, which was generally pretty positive, but they've made a few recommendations that we will be looking to implement as well. So specifically from the police, what they have recommended is to look at the seating on the Litchfield Street side. That is being a source of use for some of the displaced hanging out that's been occurring. Plus, there's been more of the streety type activity happening in that area. So they've suggested we have a look at that seating and see what can be done in that space. From the CCTV perspective, we're looking to connect the bus interchange to the art gallery. So for the newer councillors, we have a 24/7 monitoring station in the art gallery for our CCTV cameras. It's primarily related to the art gallery itself, but we've increasingly put remote sites connected through that, particularly pools, and we can see what's happening in there in real time and in some cases communicate. So if you feel the need to go and do a late night dip after it's closed at Tipuna Tumamu, sorry, you may be shouted at through the public address system because we can pick you up through the cameras, and that's a real issue that we do have and we take action on. We're also looking at potentially bringing in AI with our cameras, not from a facial recognition perspective, which is often a concern, but just to help us see and draw our attention to out of the ordinary events so that it makes it easier to spot when there's issues occurring when you've got multiple sources or multiple screens in front of you. We're also looking at a easy reporting system and campaign, similar to if you see something, say something, with potential for text lines, mobile numbers, etc., so that it just makes it easier for people to raise issues. Talked about bollards. We're looking at simple things like improving the trespass training for our guards so that it gives the police more strength to be able to enforce those trespass requirements. And making some changes to the entrance to the igloo. While we think that's working really well, some of the neighbouring businesses have raised concerns. We think if we change the entrance, that will address some of those concerns. They won't necessarily see that people are leaving from the igloo or in the vicinity of the igloo and going to their businesses and causing trouble, and then saying, hey, the cause of the trouble is the igloo. So we want to see if we can break that. I know there has been some thoughts and were raised, particularly through the annual plan, about things like extending the YCD hours. We've had a number of discussions with YCD about that. They do not believe that's appropriate or justified. They're really focused on that after school period, and extending hours means that the clientele, the youth, may end up staying in town for longer, which is not necessarily desirable, and it could result in different issues. There's also been suggestions that we just simply increase guard numbers. We've got that flexibility to do that, particularly for special events, but our assessment is that that's not justified normally. So just in closing, before I open up for questions, transport interchanges like the bus interchanges, it's not a destination. It's a transitional space, and we aim to really make it feel safe, welcoming, and efficient for getting from one place to the other but not as a place to go as a destination. Transport interchanges attract a diversity of people and diverse mix of people with the issues that brings. So we really try and take our role is to create that security and comfort through design, visibility of our guards and our responsiveness. But we can't control everything and we can't control what's happening beyond the site. So we need to continually focus on being vigilant, being empathetic, because there are issues that are not bad. They're results of other things that are going on for people. And that approach is one that is similar to what happens globally in these kind of facilities. So at that point, I'll stop and subject to the Mayor, open up for questions.
Okay, we've got Andre first, please.
Thank you. Yeah, just the question around what displacement of hanging out activity, I guess, means in real terms. Like,
So basically, rather than groups of youth meeting inside or at our forecourts, we're starting to see them going across the road, down some of the laneways in there, sometimes into the little parklet vacant site on the opposite corner. That's what we're starting to see, that type of activity happening. When the youth are in the vicinity of the bus interchange, we will intervene if we see things. So, for instance, we've seen a situation where intoxicated persons have been trying to give alcohol to youth. Guards have intervened and stopped that. If this is occurring somewhere else, we're not in a position to be able to intervene in those circumstances.
Yeah. So, I mean, young people are always going to be hanging out somewhere.
Absolutely agree.
So what part of this is, I mean, what discussions have been had with young people as part of this process?
So there's a youth, two versions of youth surveys have been part of the data that we've used, picking up on the information that comes through from that.
And who did they survey?
So one of those was to school groups. So it was done by the Youth Council through to schools. That's the group that presented to council earlier in the year. And the other one was there's some of the youth groups have been doing security surveys and youth oriented design, and they provided information.
So it didn't survey the young people who hang out. So it didn't include surveying the young people who hang out around here, because isn't that exactly who we need to be speaking with? I mean, they're going to go somewhere. They're just looking for something to do. So if the plan is just to move them on or keep an eye on them forever rather than have spaces for them, surely we're going to keep going around in circles.
But YCD, who are qualified, experienced youth workers and are there as the youth hub all the time, they are the people that have given you this advice, aren't they? So they are talking to their young people all the time. That's what youth workers do.
So they have surveyed the young people who would typically hang out around this area like people do. They have surveyed those young people.
Well, they would have spoken to them.
I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. If the surveys have included surveying the, young people hanging out that we're referring to, I guess what I'm talking about, rather than just surveying, youth groups. Young people are hanging out.
I'm not talking about the surveys. I'm talking about the advice that was given by YCD, who are an experienced youth, youth organisation. So it's not just a random view we have based on a few surveys. It's experienced people who would know more than us, any of us, about the client groups that are coming in there.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just trying to get an understanding of what conversations have been had with young people who would often frequent hanging out in town. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. So we've indicated a variety of sources for that. I suppose keep in mind this is not a youth facility. This is a transitional hub for people catching public transport. So we've tried to keep that breadth of data through from a variety of sources.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, mate. Nathaniel, please.
What are our goals for youth in the inner city?
That's really something we can't answer. We're here to talk about the bus interchange, we can take that on notice and get the appropriate staff to respond on that.
So that doesn't sort of inform our approach. It's sort of more about how we keep the exchange safe than about those broader goals. Is that?
So that's what council has asked us to provide advice on.
Yeah, just clarifying. Thank you.
Beauty. Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. A wee while ago, there was an incident on a bus where two old elderly ladies were injured. They arrived at the bus exchange and there was really no health and safety, etc. there at all. So what is the situation now with regards to first aid facility and whose responsibility is it? Is it ECANs who actually have the buses, or is it councils? Because it's a very strange, I find it a difficult relationship between this is a building which we own, but services ECAN, but at that point no one took responsibility, which is atrocious. So I'm just wondering where we are now.
Yeah, so as a result of that incident, we made several changes, and our security providers provide part of the requirements is they'll provide a first aider on site at all times.
Yep.
So as soon as they step off the bus, they become council's responsibility, and we badge act on our behalf. So we won't see. I'm confident we won't see a repeat of that.
Great, thank you very much. Cheers.
Celeste, please.
Can you just speak a bit more about the city safety teams and also what the approach is in terms of people who might be homeless that are in the bus interchange? Are they getting moved on, and if so, where?
It's kind of a case by case. So if they're not causing any issues, the security teams will just let them be, I guess. But we don't have a lot of issues of long-term tenants in that regard. And we're currently just in the process of working with the mission to see if we can get some training for the guards around how to interact and just lift that level of engagement as well.
Okay, that's good. So just to clarify, it's not a straightforward kind of move on process. It's assessing it and looking at what's appropriate.
And it's the mission outreach team who have got that strong experience in that space to provide that. The city safety team is more the CCBA guards, and it's we work with them. They're doing their patrols, but we work with them to coordinate and be aware of issues before they get to us if we're seeing things occurring.
Okay, thank you very much. And lastly, Tyler, please.
Hey guys, thanks so much for doing this. I remember the annual plan amendment last year. I just have a couple of questions, and these are big ones. But the first one is around the youth council's youth audit of both of the bus interchanges, which is the Riccarton Bus Lounge and the Central one. And there were some recommendations from them, which seemed actually pretty straightforward, which was enhance safety in the bus lounges by improving lighting, potentially extending open hours and revising security policies. Another one was improving streetscape lighting by installing lights in empty shop spaces and considering creative lighting choices. And then the last one that I looked at here was enhance the appearance of the streetscape by increasing greenery, adding colour and maintaining cleanliness. Is there anything in the plans for council to consider that, particularly on the corner of what are those streets? Is that Colombo? Is it the corner of Colombo and I can't remember the intersection?
Yeah, the challenge we've got on the corner there is we've looked at planter boxes and that kind of thing in the past. The concern was it was just going to add another layer of accommodation for people to sit or hide behind, that kind of thing. So it's a bit of an ongoing thing for us, and we're looking at all options. And part of the consultation we've got at the moment with a security provider is to look at the best way to address that frontage in a way that leaves it being safe, but also can just raise that profile. The other items have been looked through. I'll have to go and find out where we are with those, though.
Yep. We can send that through by memo.
Oh, that sounds great. And who's got did the security contract renew?
Yeah, we're just in the process of having that signed off. So it's status quo at the moment.
Okay. So The preferred contractor is the same, which is Red Badge. I know that there was some concerns about guard performance in the past. We have addressed that, and we've seen a big improvement. So working with Red Badge, and particularly in training, and there's been some choice of personnel, which has helped.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't need to do that. I know it's public. The last question I've got is around business. So we obviously own the buildings. The one in Riccarton is obviously a little bit touchy because we don't officially own that one, I believe. But in terms of SIPTED stuff, the environmental things, are there any possibilities in us taking into account a bit more of looking at for lease for other businesses to be able to make the area feel more safe? We know that people make people safer. We also know that foot traffic makes people feel safer. So would there be any options for us to explore leasing agreements with businesses or putting things out for lease for enterprises to be filling up that interchange?
So we do that already. We have got some vacant spaces in the bus interchange at the moment because some of those businesses have not, or they've struggled just getting foot traffic. Foot traffic has increased, though. We've certainly seen that. I think, how much is it now?
Over the last 18 months, it's increased by 1,000 people per day using the interchange to get on a bus.
Yeah, wow. So we're seeing that. So I think we take it on notice to see whether we can potentially go back out to market to fill some of those spaces.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks so much.
Righto. So that's, Yanni, please. Yanni is the last one.
Yeah, thanks. Is there any plan? I know you talked about removing the seating outside the intercity. As someone who's dropped people off there and experienced it, it's pretty shambolic. There's really no good pickup or drop off points. There's some seating, but you're saying you're going to remove that. Has there been any review into the future of the intercity continuing from there or being put to a more suitable location?
We'd need to take in that on notice. That's probably more from our transport colleagues who are closer to those items.
Right. So just in terms of before you remove the seats, will there be any discussion with intercity or transport colleagues around what the implications would be?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. And just, I guess I was just interested in terms of the points that were made around young people and youth space. I know we've got that temporary one where ECAN, at the back of ECAN, just I guess really interested in looking at that bigger issue of where young people do hang out in the central city. If we're going to run a campaign saying not to hang out at the bus exchange, then where do they go? So just kind of not quite clear how that process could work in parallel with what we're doing.
We can talk to our community development colleagues about that. As property and facilities people, it's not our specialty, but we can certainly talk to them about it.
Okay, great.
Thank you very, very much. That brings us to the end of today's workshop. Thank you, Brennan and Bruce. Good to see you again.